course, Police Commissioner Fannie Masemola saying that Gauteng will get its own political killings task team. This comes as 121 case dockets allegedly taken from the KZN political killings task team were returned. KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi claimed suspended Deputy Police Commissioner Shadrack Spear pulled the dockets on the instruction of Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who has been placed on special leave. We get reaction now, and we are joined by crime researcher Thabang, Bogopa. Thabang, good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us. So I think let's start off with the first part of that announcement. Gauteng will get its own political killings task team. Your reaction to that, and what that task team really needs to look like, the elements that it needs to have to ensure that it is protected and able to do its work thoroughly and efficiently.
Good evening, Naledi, and good evening to the viewers. Firstly, let's just be honest. The political task team in South Africa must be headed by General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi. It must be coordinated at the national level, because if you transfer one mandate to the other province and partially the other province, or actually discompartmentalize the two, you are risking the fact that in one province, the task team will excel in terms of investigating and detecting the crimes, especially the real perpetrators, going deep to the principal perpetrators known as the kingpins, who called the shots for a person to be killed. Then if you risk by dividing it, then you say that in another province, you're going to find that there's just a blurry line around who's getting cracked and who's actually been detected. For instance, you're going to find that KZN does not just end at the killer or the person who pulled the trigger. They go beyond who transported them, who enabled them to breach the security, who provided them with the firearms, who actually called for them to do the whole job. But then you come to Gauteng, they just look at that we found the killer, and then they make sure that the killer confesses or admits to the occurrence of the crime, and then they're convicted, then the case is closed. But there's no depth investigation. We are saying this because we've seen so much interference with investigations in Gauteng. And I think even the Premier came out on public to say we have observed and we are aware that there's so much interference with cases. So the advice that we want to give nationally is that all the task teams for political killings investigations must be headed or be under the oversight of Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi until he goes on pension, I think, resigns next year, May. They would have finished, because we have seen that there were those attempts. And also, Naledi, just to make it clear, there was the denial that the cases were never withdrawn. So now when you risk separating the two, and let me also mention that the Gauteng successes were as a result of the 10 task team members who were from KZN under the supervision of Mkhwanazi. So before the 10 investigators from KZN task team came to join and assist the Gauteng one, there was no movement. Now, if they want to re-separate them again, we're still going to see the victims not getting justice.
You make such a strong point when you say there was, upon the allegations made by Mkhwanazi, there was the assertion by the Deputy Police Commissioner that these dockets were never pulled. This is what we heard. And yet today we hear that the dockets are making their way back to KwaZulu-Natal. We are also joined by a specialist investigator, Mr. Mike Bolhuis. So good evening to you, and thank you so much for joining us. That point there that Thabang makes at the end, today we hear from National Police Commissioner Fannie Masemola those 121 dockets are heading back to KwaZulu-Natal. I guess, you know, top of mind is a confirmation that there was indeed a pulling of political killings dockets.
Oh, yes. And we are elated, and this is brilliant news. And we fully support General Mkhwanazi as well as all and any other top policeman that is not corrupt. And I want to say that very clearly. They are good policemen, and there are policemen that wants to see this country safe and sound. My biggest concern, though, is that the hearings and the commission and what needed to be done right from the beginning is still not done. And this still gives those who are corrupt the chance to make a lot of moves, influence a lot of people, maybe bribe a lot of people, threaten or intimidate a lot of people, or even people could be killed. because this is how organized crime and racketeering works. And they will not hesitate if their lives, I'm talking about the top government and police officials that are in the line of fire here, they will not think twice and make use of gang violence because they have a violent hand in this, and make sure that those that would stand against them not get their time in court.
I want to get your view on a point that Thabang started with just at the beginning of our conversation, Mike. And he says, all right, so Gauteng is going to get its own political killings task team. Thabang says, though, this should be a national competence. What do you say to that?
Yeah, no, it must be a national unit. And I've explained it before. It must be people that can identify, evaluate, and do the risk analysis, the complete investigation, the solving of these cases, and the prevention of these cases, kind of policeman. It's a policeman that understands what organized crime is about and the racketeering. Remember, organized crime says it itself. It's organized crime. It has a muscle hand. It has a business hand, which is the finances. It's got authorities, which is government and police, which makes and steers the direction of all the crimes. And it's all about money and power and control. Yeah. That's why it is presently seen as a mafioso kind of state, hijacking the country. We're all in fear. We're all in uncertainty. And my biggest concern is that the president hasn't really put his foot down. He should have, in my opinion, since day one said, quiet everybody in my office, immediate investigations. But they knew, they all knew, including the president, this has been going on for years, and now it's snowballed so big that it's very difficult to stop this big criminal organization. Yeah. And yes, it should be nationally dealt with by all senior police officials, which are extremely qualified, which has not been named and mentioned to do this investigation. Otherwise, it won't work.
Yeah. Thabang, let me bring you back in here. Now that we know that the 121 dockets are going back to KwaZulu-Natal, the question then becomes the integrity of these 121 dockets. Is that for you a concern that they are untouched?
Thank you so much.
No, let me give that to Thabang. Mike, just let's hear from Thabang. Thabang, go ahead.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike, that side. Remember what's happening, the physical dockets do not necessarily mean that investigation was not done. General Mkwanazi, when he went on a public disclosure, he mentioned that there was investigation done, undercover investigation. If you understand that, it is in terms of Section 252 of the criminal procedure. So the evidence is there. What's outstanding is it to be attached and annexed into the case dockets. So what we used to do as detectives, when we are a smart detective, you run parallel investigation because you know that the perpetrators might likely want to influence your commander to take the docket. So when you collect evidence, you make it duplicate so that even if they want to steal or destroy the docket, you can still take out another one to say. So what I'm saying is that we are very happy, and I can entrust you, the dockets, within 2 days or so, they will have so much evidence that was gathered undercover or covert. Then it will be brought into the case docket. Similarly, to a case docket, when it is being investigated, you might find that the intelligence is also doing their inquiry on the same matter. So if I am a corrupt detective, I say we don't get the suspect. Intelligence unit can come and say, we have arrested the perpetrator, bring the docket, we'll take it over. So that's how we always run investigations. I'm very confident that with General Mkwanazi's supervision and other confident and fearless police officials, the dockets will not be compromised and justice will be enjoyed by those who have suffered so much harm from this. But let me also mention, Naledi, that political killings happened in all the provinces of the country. We need to look into this issue as an organized crime, meaning it is multi-provincial or inter-provincial. 1 was killed in Mpumalanga, 7 in Limpopo, 30 in Eastern Cape, 7 in Western Cape. Some are not even classified as political killings because it's a councillor who was not popular, or it's a PR councillor who was not popular, or a mayor, or a director general who was not known. In Limpopo, we've had a lot of people who were working at the provincial level being killed. Those are political killings. We've had people from the auditor general being killed because they were auditing some of these municipalities. So we need to look at it holistically from a national level, and we trust currently the provincial head of KwaZulu-Natal, let him be given this task. Perhaps when he finishes his term as the provincial commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal, let them give him this task, like the former general of Gauteng, General Mzwandile Petros. When he left, he was given a certain task team to command. And we trust that Mkwanas will actually ensure that all political killings in the country are actually being dealt with, and perhaps we can now have peace. If a child, a family are living with a mayor, they don't have to fear that my father might not come back home. 2026 is coming, it's local elections. In KZN and Gauteng and Eastern Cape, they're going to kill each other. We need the fearlessness of Mkwanas and other senior generals. And we want to say this, SAPS must be careful of taking senior police officials who have a majority of experience only in administration and giving them operational tasks, because that's where we kill the morale, but we also kill the vibrance of policing, because when you take a general who has been in admin for the past 22 years and has never had operational experience, you make them head a task team that has to deal with 100% operational matters by nature. That person is even afraid of getting out of the car when they're at the crime scene, but you want them to command. That's a challenge.
Sure. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, though, we continue with Thabang Bogopa, who is a crime researcher, as well as Mike Bolhuis, a specialist investigator. And we'll get into what happens now with these 121 political killings dockets that have found their way back to KZN investigators and detectives. How do we protect the integrity of these dockets, and what could be inside it? What do investigations need to look like moving forward? After this, stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Newsfeed PM, the late edition. And the latest development after that explosive press briefing by the KZN Police Commissioner, Ndledla Mkhwanazi, in July. The latest, of course, being the National Police Commissioner Fannie Masemola today announcing that Gauteng will get its own political killings task team. Not just that, the 121 dockets that Mkhwanazi had talked about, saying they had been pulled as a result of an instruction, as he put it, allegedly by Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, are making their way back to the KZN detectives and will be investigated further. Those are the latest. We get some reaction to that news from some of our viewers. We take a look at some of those WhatsApps that have come in. Let's bring them up on the screen. Voyo says, good evening, Naledi. The decision to return the 121 political killings dockets to KwaZulu-Natal is a step towards ensuring justice and transparency. It's crucial that these cases are thoroughly investigated and that those responsible are held accountable. The public deserves answers and closure. Another one from Wako, who says, good evening, Naledi. Those words are music to our ears because crime is too much in the country and they must root it out. Those who have done wrong must face the law, because this thing of political killings is so scary and so diabolical. I fully support what National Police Commissioner has announced. Wako, thank you for that. Is that Fina? Fina from Cosmos City says, good evening, Naledi. The National Commissioner's idea will not succeed. This is political interference. The National Killings Task Team, the political killings task team in Gauteng has never succeeded. Okay, not much confidence coming from Fina in Cosmos City. And Queen says, evening, Naledi. My view is for Mkhwanazi to take all those dockets for citizens to get justice and choose his own team to work with. That is trusted. Queen, thank you so much for that WhatsApp. All right, let's talk about what happens now. Mike, just before the break there, we had Thabang saying, ultimately, we're getting closer to 2026. Concerns about the fallout of the political fallout and tensions that we might see in 2026 when you've got political killings dockets that are making their way back to KZN, and concerns there about what we need to do to tighten the screws. We don't have more violence in such an important year for many political role players.
Yeah. So here's the important thing that I wanted to mention about the 121 dockets. When you receive a docket back, the first thing you will do, and that's what Nkwanazi's team will do, is what has been done, what hasn't been done, what was done correctly, what has been done incorrectly, and what should have been done, and what must be redone, obviously, and also any part of corruption that has been committed. They will also take in consideration how long the dockets were gone, who were the investigators, was there any interference, and are the dockets complete. So we call this a complete re-investigation, and this is where we will see the corruption. Because if you receive a docket and it's not all the protocol being followed as a policeman, it will clearly show in the docket. So we will await that, and I agree with all the comments. It's good news, it's music to our ears. Pertaining the future now, as I've said, it's a huge concern that there is delays. This is the most important aspect presently in our country is crime. You take out crime today and corruption, and we can take off the burglar bars, close the police stations, and we'll all love each other and we'll live in peace. You leave corruption and crime in place, and it will always become bigger, never smaller, if it's not dealt with severely on a zero-tolerance basis. Unfortunately, our country is not working on that basis because they also don't have the infrastructure. If you have a feared and respected police force that is protecting and serving the public, you wouldn't have this crime. You wouldn't have this runaway setup that we have in our country, and crime wouldn't pay. But crime begets crime, and crime is done because the criminal can do it and get away with it. And as I've said, it's lucrative in South Africa, and it can get about in any level of this country. And remember, the public follows. How many people do we know in the public that's corrupt? How many, the normal policeman next to the road gets a chocho or a money in the hand and just let them go? How many businessmen are committing insurance fraud and or buying or doing bribes? How many construction envelopes are going left, right, and center? How many municipalities? How many nepotism cases are there? This is an absolute rotten situation in our country because the top structure is committing crime and is not working on a zero-tolerance basis and does not have the ANC, which is in control of this country. President Ramaphosa does not have a safety and security network in South Africa protecting and serving the country. Then you will have haywire, and you will have this crime just escalating and becoming more. So I am concerned about next year, and I am concerned about, extremely concerned about the way things are going, where we have so many generals, so many people in government, including the president that is implicated in all of this, is all involved in this organized crime and the racketeering. And how would we know if the guys aren't just going to make way for each other? Because remember, they all have files on each other. You talk of me, I'm going to talk of you. You testify to me, I'll take you down with me. And as I've said, the ultimate will be violence, and there would be extreme influence. And then obviously the businessmen, you know, money talks, everything else walks. So I have a huge concern about this. The solution lies in an absolute independent national specialist organization that deals in zero tolerance immediately with all these high fives, with all these high ranks and in government that has committed these forms of corruption. Now remember, if you know of corruption and you don't step up, you're part of corruption. If you know one general is committing corruption or crime or pays or bribes or envelopes, and you know of this and you don't do something about it, you are part of the problem. You're not the solution. You're not protecting and serving the public. So I'm very glad this is out in the open now, so the public can actually see how rotten to the core this is and how bad it is. And they should really understand what is the dangers of this all, because it eats away on our economy. That's why we have no money in this country, because the crooks have it.
You know, I think about, again, in July, when Nkwanazi made those allegations, and you talk about just how far up the rot very well goes, and this is the allegation that he made. He mentioned members of parliament. He mentioned members of the judiciary. We're going to take some calls quickly. Thokozani is calling in Springs. Thokozani, a good evening to you. Thank you for calling. Thokozani, are you there? Thank you for calling.
Hello?
Yes, Thokozani, we're listening to you. You're live. Go ahead.
Yes. My sister, for me, what Masemola said, I don't think can be a good idea, because the only trusted now is Mr. Mkhwanazi can take over online province to the special investigator killing police. Killing politics.
Sure.
For me, I don't. In Gauteng, actually, is very, very a lot of corruption. That thing, Masemola must believe this thing to Mkhwanazi to take over everything, in anything involving political killing.
Sure. All right, Thokozani, thank you so much. Strong points coming from Thokozani, and Thabang, I'll give that to you to respond to him. The reality is, with so much confidence that many South Africans have, ultimately the KZN Police Commissioner is but one man. Thokozani is saying, well, even if you set up a political killings task team in Gauteng, there is so much corruption, he says, right? How do you ensure that even that task team is equipped, has the integrity to do the work they needed to do? You can't have one person overseeing everyone all the time. Thabang?
Yeah, you are speaking so low, Naledi. Can you just repeat the question and maybe the technical team increase your volume?
Yeah, if we can just try and get him a little bit louder for us. So, Thabang, we had a caller. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
perfect.
So we had a caller, Thokozani in Springs, who says he's not convinced by what he heard from the National Police Commissioner, saying Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, he'd rather see Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi oversee all political killings, and that really Gauteng, there just is too much corruption, Thokozani believes, in Gauteng for us to have, I suppose, a task team that has integrity. How do we ensure that that takes place?
Thank you so much. It's very simple. The SAPS Act allows the National Commissioner the powers to just advertise posts now. Advertise posts for National Task Team for investigation of political killings, but as well as the combating. Remember, when you deal with political killings, you must be ready to combat. Because when you're going to hit or investigate some of these hitmen, they are going to shoot you back. Now, they advertise the post, they make sure that they give all the investigators motivation. Perhaps let it start at a captain and Mkhwanazi, there must be 2 major generals, one for combating, one for investigation, and then there must be brigadiers for each province. And then we need people who are fearless. I'm repeating this because criminals are getting to enjoy the ability to do crime because of fearful leaders. I've seen the provincial commissioner of Gauteng, the acting provincial commissioner, when he's on TV, the lack of clarity in just describing certain basic things. You can see that if some of these people of this nature are given greater tasks against the most fearful, remember some of these Inkabis, both in KZN and Gauteng are the same people. They are very feared. You do not need fearful police officials to be investigating this. Let them advertise posts, let them fill this post within 2 to 3 weeks, and then let them make sure that they can even head pick per province to say, in Limpopo, we know 3 warrant officers who are very brave and very good with investigation. Give them captain ranks, bring them to this task team. Make sure that only fearless police officials are tasked with this. Because once you have any proportion, be it 10%, 40% of fearful police officials, they are going to compromise the quality of investigation. So at the helm of this is people who are used to investigating crime, people who are used to being out there at night, investigating and facing these fearful criminals head on. But if you take anyone who's going to hide under the seat while we are investigating, who once they hear a bullet, they are going to say, you'll call me and give me feedback, you are not going to win against this.
Okay. Yeah, interesting words there, Thabang. Let's take one last caller. Lindile is in Matatiele. Lindile, good evening.
Hello, Mr.
Hello, Lindile. How are you? Thank you for calling.
Yes, ma'am. let's say good evening, the viewers of the SAPS News. Mama, you are very happy.
Okay, Lindile, you're listening to the TV. I'm gonna have to give you one last opportunity to share with us what you have to say. Otherwise, if you're listening to the TV, I'm gonna have to let you go. What is your thought?
Let's say good evening, viewers again. Now, lady, what is important is this action of bringing back all those documents over 100 where they're killing politicians, killing taxi bosses, killing all people to go down, because this killing of taxi bosses, they're continuing in this country. The killing of the position, politician, all the municipality, they continue, and even the high position. So Mkwanas must take this thing in high mood, high spirit, and train another young juniors, because Mkwanas, they can't work alone. All the fearless of the police are not have the heart to work in this country. Mustn't allowed, because other police, they're going to bribe again. Mkwanas must be aware of that. But all the police, if the police are weak, they like money, they don't like the country, they're going to make a failure to this commissioner.
You know what, Lindile, I think that your point actually does bring us to a close. And Lindile and Madadiele, they're essentially saying we need bravery in the police force, and we'll be watching closely what happens next with the 121 dockets that make their way now to KZN detectives. Thank you so much to our guests, Thabang Bogopa, crime researcher, very insightful views, also incredibly insightful views from Mr. Mike Bolhuis, who is a specialist investigator, joining us on the line.